Red Badge of Courage, Story 3, Alone on the Run. Henry awakened slowly. Little by little he returned to the real world. For a few moments he had looked upon himself as someone he had never seen before. He picked up his cap from the ground. Carefully he dried his wet face. So the awful shooting was over at last. The greatest test had been passed. Henry felt that he was fine. He was a fine fellow. He smiled at the other men. Some were shaking hands, others were speaking deep thoughts. Their brave acts would surely become well known. Suddenly, one of the men started shouting. "Here they come again!" he cried. The enemy was moving fast. Henry saw their flag speeding forward. The tired group of men breathed deeply. "Oh, say, this is too much of a good thing. Why don't they send help?" called another man. They all had enough exercise. They had all had enough exercise for a while. Shells crashed to the ground, blossoming like war flowers. Henry's knees shook. He had a hollow feeling deep inside. The young man was so tired. Henry was sure that the enemy was braver and stronger than he. Through the smoke ahead, he saw men running and shouting. Henry just seemed to close his eyes and wait. Then the man next to him threw down his gun and ran. Others began to hurry away through the smoke clouds. The young man turned his head, the sound of the men moving nearby. He thought the regiment was leaving him behind. Henry was afraid. He screamed and turned around. He began to speed toward the back. He saw death as his only enemy. Henry heard the sound of footsteps close by. He felt better knowing that he was joined by others. But then the young man stopped. He was alone. Looking ahead, he saw another regiment. This group had begun to line up. Perhaps they were going to exercise. They moved closer to the line of fire. What kind of men were they? Maybe they were very brave, or else they didn't understand the fools. Soon Henry came upon a general on horseback. The young private stayed close by. The horseman spoke to the officer and rode away. The moment later, the general called out wildly, "They've held back the enemy," he shouted. "The 304th has won the fight." Henry was surprised and angry. His regiment had gone on to stop the enemy. He was the only one who ran away. Still, Henry told himself that he had a right to run. After all, he might have been killed if he had stayed. Henry was sure that any smart person would have ran. The young soldier kept moving through the woods. The insects made repeated sounds. The birds flew over his head. The sound of death was far away. It seemed like nature had no ears. Henry threw a pine cone at a happy squirrel. The squirrel ran quickly away. The young private thought. Nature had given him a sign. Nature had shown him that running in the face of danger was all right. Henry felt eyes upon him. He turned to find a dead man staring in his direction. The man was leaned up against a tree. His blue uniform had lightened to green. Henry backed away. Then he turned and ran. When he finally came to the road, the young private saw a line of men coming his way. Many of the men were badly hurt. He joined the group and walked with them. Henry had not been marching long when a battered soldier came up beside him. The man had been wounded in the head and the arm. He spoke quickly to Henry. "Was it pretty good fighting, wasn't it?" The battered man had to repeat his question one more time. Henry thought for a while. He kept his eyes to the ground. "Yes," he said shortly. Then he began to walk more quickly. The battered man followed. "Where were you hit?" he asked Henry in a gentle way. Henry began to answer, but he tripped on his words. He turned away suddenly and moved through the crowd. Henry's fingers picked at one of his buttons. The battered man looked at him, not knowing what to make of the strange young man.